friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media, when TV replaces politics. As seen in Vladimir Solovyov's latest broadcast, we see how direct insults, threats, and even downright grotesque stories are presented as serious political analysis. Behind this noise lies not only the deliberate humiliation of the Ukrainian leadership, but also a more important message: an attempt to instill in European viewers a sense of weariness and helplessness in the face of war. 1. Hateful vocabulary as a political method. In the very first minutes of the broadcast, Solovyov lashes out at the Ukrainian president in a style far removed from diplomacy and journalism. Personal insults and ridicule of his appearance and background replace real conversation. This is an important symptom. In the absence of convincing arguments, Russian propaganda builds its discourse on dehumanizing its opponents. For European society, this style is familiar from 20th century history. First irony and mockery, then the justification of violence as a natural outcome. 2. Manipulation of facts and alternative statistics. A characteristic feature of the program is the constant substitution of concepts. When Kiev talks about tens of kilometers of liberated territory, the host demands name at least one settlement and declares everything a lie. Meanwhile, Russian successes are presented as self-evident, without confirmation. Here we see a familiar trope: doubting any independent sources while simultaneously asserting the absolute veracity of one's own reports. It is important for the European reader to understand that such rhetoric is intended not to inform, but to erode the very idea of objective truth. 3. Europe as a shmoo, metaphors of humiliation. A special place in the monologue is occupied by the description of Europe as a helpless creature dreaming of being eaten. This image sounds absurd, but it serves a specific purpose: to convince Russian audiences that Europe lacks willpower and independence. For Europeans, this is cause for concern. Moscow doesn't perceive the European Union as an equal player, but rather as a field for pressure. The derogatory metaphors are not accidental, but part of an information war aimed at undermining Europeans' trust in their own institutions. 4. Trump as a figure of propaganda hopes. The program devotes considerable attention to Donald Trump. His words are interpreted as almost supportive of Moscow, and his disagreement is dismissed as manipulation. In reality, Russian propaganda uses Trump for two purposes. 1. To sow discord in transatlantic unity. 2. To demonstrate to domestic audiences that America is tired of Ukraine. First, note that in his conversation with reporters, he joked, saying, "I asked Trump for something to level the playing field. You'll turn off the microphone." But I said, well, everyone understands that he wants a tactical Avenary, and even better, a strategic one. Second, well, we understand perfectly well that this phrase about us developing long-range Ukrainian drones that fly 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers, well, they're certainly not Ukrainian at all, that's clear. They're as Ukrainian as Zelensky. There's nothing Ukrainian about him except a mangled Nightingale-style lingo, which he still hasn't mastered. So it's clear it's the West, based on which consider the following information, which appeared either in the Wall Street Journal or somewhere else, that Trump was approached with plans for a Ukrainian counteroffensive, which requires American intelligence. What does that mean in Russian? This means that if Trump gives the go-ahead, he becomes an accomplice to the war. In other words, he's then following Biden's path, because that means he A. knows about these plans, and B. is a direct participant by providing intelligence. It's good that this article appeared, because so far we've seen Trump trying his best not to be an accomplice, but to maintain his role as a mediator. 5. Escalation as a background to normality. Solovyev repeatedly speaks of the need for new strikes, of hundreds of targets, and of the Russian army's plans. All of this is presented as if war is a natural, routine matter, and discussing it is an everyday occurrence. This is precisely the key tactic, turning war into a new normal, accustoming people to the idea that it will be long and endless. For Europe, this signal is dangerous. The longer the war lasts, the greater the risk that fatigue and cynicism will prevail over principles. Why Europe shouldn't ignore television speeches. At first glance, Solovyov's speeches are a torrent of aggression, ridicule, and fantastical stories. But this is precisely their function, to create an atmosphere in which war appears eternal and inevitable, Europe weak and dependent, and Russia invincible. For European audiences, the conclusion is clear. Such broadcasts don't inform, they wage war with words. Their goal is to erode faith in democratic institutions, sow discord among allies, and normalize the idea of violence. This can only be answered with clarity and firmness. Support for Ukraine should not be a matter of emotion, but a matter of strategy. European unity should not be a matter of doubt, but a condition for survival. This was the Empire of Lies program. See you soon.